gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 289. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
We do have some housekeeping. First up, I do want to remind listeners that Cinema Rogues, Andrew and Guy's movie podcast, is now its own show with its own feed, bereft of our Patreon feed. And you can find that at cinemarogues.podbean.com. And if I am a good friend, then I will have remembered to put a link in the show notes. So you can look for yourself and see how good of a friend I am. I'm already regretting saying it because now I feel
good job.
Also, we do have kind of an announcement. I was going to say kind of an announcement, but it is for sure an announcement. It is most definitely an announcement. Yes. After the episodes we're recording tonight, because we record in 2-episode batches, so starting in episode 291, we're no longer going to be reading listener feedback on the show.
Right.
We do want to thank everyone that wrote in for our listener feedback. Really, honestly, that took the time out of their day to sit down and write stuff for us to read on the show. It was a neat segment.
Oh yeah.
As time has rolled on, the original intent of it was, hey, maybe people can write stuff in to help us cover blind spots in our research and help us with the show topics, you know, because sometimes people just know way more about things or know weird, obscure stuff about things that we don't know and that we wouldn't run into in our couple weeks of researching a show. And as our recording,
and also sometimes they would tell us about a perspective from somewhere else that we had no idea about.
Right, absolutely. And as time has rolled on, the fact of the matter is that we don't usually read the responses thanks to our recording and note-taking schedule until it's too late to incorporate them into the show.
Right.
Also, a lot of them were a little long in the tooth and had to be edited down for time. And just really honestly, I feel bad editing anyone down when they sit down and take time out of their day to write an interesting anecdote for the show. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got to cut some of that out because we got a lot and I can't fit it and I'm sorry. And it makes me feel bad, really honestly.
Yeah.
Because we want to include everything that everybody writes every time. It's just not always realistic for the segment. And I also don't want to read it bad, like longer responses. I don't want to go into that robot mode where you're just like, and then, and not do justice to the stories that people write in. So we are going to end that segment. I'm really sorry if it upsets anybody. We have opened up a topic discussion channel on the Discord, specifically where Saturn and I can talk about our research and discuss things with people for the show. And I guarantee you any discussion that goes on there, if it's of note for the research or for the show or any interesting stories, we'll probably still bring them up on the show if and when we remember them naturally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we do that already. I mean, if somebody in the chat says something that is relevant to a topic, we'll frequently say, oh, and then somebody in the Discord said this. So that already happens. Just this will give us a dedicated channel for that to happen more frequently.
Right. So it can be more of a natural occurrence instead of me sitting down and just robot reading people's responses. Yeah. So again, to everybody that wrote in and for tonight's show and the other show we're doing tonight, episode 290, thank you so much for writing in. And it's still there. Just go hang out with us in Discord, which I know we're always funneling people into, but it's really the only place we hang out.
And also, we always post the episodes on our Reddit once they get posted live through the podcast feed. And please feel free to share that same feedback in the responses to the episodes too. That way we can see it, anybody else can see it. It's not edited anymore. It's just there, which is how it's always been on the Reddit. But that you can still use that as a place to share whatever you would like to do. We definitely encourage that.
Right. So anyway, that out of the way. Let's jump into my week. My new TV came.
Yes.
And I believe I talked to Andrew about it on the most recent Talking Wizards, which is not out yet. So weirdly enough, I think this show will go out before the show that I talked about this originally in.
At least to the uncut people. I don't know if it'll be posted normally.
If I'm being honest, we do so many shows and the release schedules are so weird. I don't even know. I know what day to do the thing and then the thing is done. But I did get my new TV and my Hisense H9G that I'd been waiting on before and researching before and losing my mind over.
And I know the first couple of days you were kind of freaking out about it.
Well, it was the most money I'd ever spent on a TV. My wife and I had been saving and planning for about a year. Yeah. And finally, I was like, this is the one. And just so people know my budget, we spent $1,000. Spent $1,000 on television, which is that's a ton of money for a TV for me. Yeah. I mean, it's a ton of money in general.
Yeah.
But all the ratings and everything were like, look, this is the best 1,000 and under television you're going to get for your money. Right. Just best all-arounder. Nice. And I had problems pretty much off the bat because it has so much more technology in it than my old TV. Because my old TV is like from 6 years ago, which is ancient television. And so just coming to grips with all the new tech in it, it's also an Android TV and getting everything working. And I did that thing where I read too much. So I knew too much about potential display problems that I might have.
Right.
That I won't even give names to because some of them, once you know how to look for them, you realize that many TVs in your life have them, and now you cannot unsee it. So, you know, as I got the TV and I was like, all right, I want to make sure it's good. There's a lot of money. I want to make sure this is the one. And I went a little too far into the AV hole. The like the avsforums.com and stuff of people like, well, if you look at the blue tint on light gray scenes in a horizontal pan, you know.
I have the exact opposite problem. Because whenever I get a new thing like a television, a new major device or whatever in my life, I immediately assume that because I spent X amount of money on it, it therefore must be the best, and whatever it is doing is correct and the optimal situation, and the other competing models must therefore be inferior.
Right. I have found some small issues with the television. Not even issues. What I've learned is the couple of issues I've found, everyone just goes, oh, yeah, all TVs of that particular type and technology have that issue to some degree. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. And so it's one of those things where if I hadn't have known to look for it, I wouldn't have ever noticed it. Right. So, but all that said, I am really enjoying the TV. I'm having a good time with it. I've come to terms with it. I've got it tweaked the way I like. One of my biggest problems off the bat was my TV I came from was like max brightness 400 nits, which is pretty dark. And this one maxes out at like 1100 nits.
Ooh, dang.
Which is quite a bit brighter. For the mathematicians out there, almost 3 times brighter. And the problem is, I'm used to watching a dim TV, and I like having a dim TV. I don't get any sunlight or anything on my television wall the way my house is done. So it's one of those things where I have the brightness at like 10. And sometimes I'll turn it down to like 8. Just because that's the image that I'm used to, and it's crazy bright. But yeah, I am enjoying it. I have come to terms with it. I have learned a whole lot about TV and display technology.
Nice.
That I wish was not in my brain. So to anyone out there who's like, I don't really know about TVs, I just want to get a decent one for a relatively cheap price, look at the reviews, but then don't spend a lot of time researching all of the terms they use because it's a deep rabbit hole.
Right.
But yeah, that's I've just kind of been hyper focused on my new TV for the last week or so.
Nice. The most I've ever spent on a TV was way more than that, and it was a stupid decision because I was young. Yeah. I had just gotten inheritance from a dead grandma, and I had $5,000 in my pocket, and I was like,
"Ooh, man!"
I was like, most of this is going to a TV, and
crazy good TV. Yeah.
I immediately spent almost $4,000 on
holy cow.
TV.
But you used that TV for a long ass time.
Oh yeah. That was back in 2004, and I kept that TV until like 3 or 4 years ago. And it still worked great, honestly, when I got rid of it. The only reason I did get rid of it is because it maxed out at 1080i, and it only had one HDMI port. So
it was a big old rear projection, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a DLP projection, and it was a fantastic television for its time. It's a 61-inch, which at the time, LCDs were capping out in the 40-inch range. So
I've got one of those
huge.
big giant rear projections out in the shop that was in this house when I moved in. Because again, the previous occupant was a big TV guy,
right?
And he left it here, and I don't know what to do with it. It's like the size of my couch.
What kind of projection is it? Is it?
I don't know anything about it. It's a Sony, and it's a big one.
Good one.
It's probably a 60+ inch.
Is it widescreen or
it's widescreen.
Okay.
We came in the house like because we had to come in when we moved in. We moved in like a month after we got access to the house because we had to fix things and clean things.
Yeah,
and it was here, and we were like, "What do we do with it?" I don't know.
I played so much DDR on PS1 on a rear projection. It was like a 36-inch rear projection or something that a friend of mine had, and man. The lag on that was nowhere near as bad as lag on modern TVs, but it was enough that it trained me to be slightly slow at the game. But yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I after finishing Ys Origin, which I mentioned on the last show, I decided I wanted to immediately go into Ys 1 and 2 since they bridged the story. Basically, Ys Origin is a precursor to Ys 1 and 2, so I was like, I should replay these. And so I played through the Steam versions, which I thought that I had played some time ago, and then I load them up and I realize I have no achievements. So I'm like, oh, I did not play these on Steam before. I should play these. And played through both of them in pretty quick succession. The first game is really short. It's you can finish it in under 10 hours easy. So that took no time. And then the second game is probably 3 times as long as the first one, give or take. It's a bit longer of a game. And I also, as I was playing through it, realized I have not played through Ys 2 all the way in probably 20 years or more. And it's way more obnoxiously difficult than I recall. Every map is this ludicrous maze with like multiple doors in every single room, and some of them go to back to the beginning, and some of them go to dead ends, and it's just really obnoxious without a bunch of maps and a strategy guide in front of you. But I did finish it, and it is, still a fun game. It's just a very dated game. It definitely feels like one of those games that came out in 1988.
Yeah.
Then after that, I wanted to compare some things against the turbo version just at the beginning of the game to try to remember how bad the localization is on the turbo version, which spoiler, it's really bad and it's hilarious.
Oh, shock. I'm just shocked.
Like the actual text translation is great, but like every name they fucked up somehow.
Yeah.
My favorite is the character Rhea was somehow named Layer. Like
there you go. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But no, when I was doing it, I realized that I was missing some music in my rip of the turbo version that I had on my RetroPie, which immediately made me start to obsess over that. So I re-ripped every single TurboGrafx CD that I have.
Oh no!
Using this program called Turbo Rip, which was designed by one of the guys that did the fan translation for Ys 4 on Turbo, as well as some of the other Ys PC games back in the day. And it's an excellent utility as long as you still have a working CD-ROM drive that will rip TurboGrafx games in a bin queue with WAV files, which is the most accurate way to get good rips of Turbo games. And then as I was doing that, I was reading up on the best way to compress them for my RetroPie, and found that RetroArch supports CHD files, which is an old MAME format, compressed hunks of data. And man,
I'm sorry. That's what CHD stands for?
I'm pretty sure it used to stand for compressed hard drives because it was for arcade images.
Okay.
And then when they realized they could compress things other than just hard drives with it, they backronymed it.
Okay. I'm sorry, backronymed it?
Yeah.
I'm learning so many words right now.
Yeah, it's when you make an acronym backwards.
It's pretty self-explanatory. Yes. I just never heard it.
Oh, I thought backronym was a commonly used expression.
No, if not common around me.
Yeah, so it's an excellent form of compression, by the way. If you have any ISOs or BenQ files or anything on a RetroArch device that you need compressed, this is the way to do it. Like my ISO files that I had made previously that I was replacing with these new ones, an image that was 500 megs ended up being like 220 megs after it's compressed. So it saves a ton of space. So I highly recommend it. And now it all works, and I feel better.
That's all that matters, so that it all works, so you can just put it all down and not touch it again for years.
Not touch it for months. Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, that's what RetroPies are all about.
You need to put it down. You need to put it down long enough to forget all of the custom configs you wrote and what you did in them. That's the perfect amount of time to forget. Now,
I then played a bunch of games, and RetroArch has updated on RetroPie at some point so that it actually has the little full color icon next to the achievements when you get the retro achievements, and that really took me off guard at first, seeing the full color pop in there. That was weird.
Yeah. Let's do some news.
Yep.
First up, Jonas Neubauer, 7-time Classic Tetris World Championship winner, has tragically passed away at the age of 39.
That's so young.
That is tremendously young. That's basically our age.
That is my age. That's really depressing.
Oh no. Oh gosh. So very, very, very sad to hear that. If I'm being really honest, I don't follow competitive Tetris.
Yeah,
I wasn't
either.
familiar with him, but a lot of people in our community did and were.
Right.
So, that's an awful thing to hear
Very
about.
tragic.
Most DSiWare titles that were previously removed by Nintendo have been restored to the eShop, including Pets Hamsters Family.
Of course.
So we may all rest easier knowing that we can still buy Pets Hamsters Family on DSiWare.
Thank God.
I know you were worried.
I didn't know that those were released on DSiWare.
Game preservation is saved. Canceled Sonic Generations PSP port has been uncovered. The build discovered was from November of 2009.
And it still had a different title then, didn't it?
I don't remember. I looked at the screenshots, but I didn't see a different title.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it having a different name than Generations, and now it is suddenly vanished from my mind. I no longer remember what it was.
Disney is reviving the Lucasfilm Games branding, but it is unrelated to LucasArts.
Yeah, it's just the branding they will use as they license out the LucasArts properties. Lucasfilm properties.
Right. So enjoy all of the sensationalist headlines that are going to come out
they
of that.
They did announce some open world Ubisoft Star Wars game coming out, which implies that EA's contract is not getting renewed.
I think I had heard something about that. I think EA is going to continue making Star Wars games or has plans in the future, but I don't know if it's no longer an exclusive contract or there's a period. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. That's what I want. Ubisoft open world games.
Oh boy.
Chewy co-founder, now board member at GameStop, and there are more reports of the company doing well in the pandemic.
There was actually just a news report today somebody posted a few minutes ago that said that in the last year, GameStop stock has gone up 1,300%.
Oh my God.
It went from $4.62 to $65.01.
Well, surely with all that renewed interest in money, they can treat their employees better during a pandemic, right?
And the best part is that the headline said that it was due to Reddit stock traders.
Yeah, I feel like the headlines, because I saw a couple headlines like that that's like, Reddit saved GameStop. And it's like, no, a bunch of people that are into stocks and stock trading happen to, their community is on Reddit.
And first of all, the Reddit stock trading communities are insane. And I don't think any of them have any idea how the market works, which is fine, because I don't think the market understands how the market works anymore. So it works.
Yeah. Arcade 1-Up, obviously because they heard our Konami Beat 'em Ups episode, have announced a 4-player X-Men arcade machine that will also include Captain America and the Avengers and the Avengers in Galactic Storm.
What?
Yes.
Like, okay, they said X-Men Arcade, and I was like, oh, that's really exciting. And they said, and it'll also have Captain America and the Avengers. And I was like, oh, that's a great game. That's great. And then they said, and also the Avengers in Galactic Storm. And I had to look that up because
I'm glad you did, because I read it and I was like, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to look.
I had looked it up once many years ago and promptly forgot about it. It's a one-on-one fighting game by Data East, using very early CG graphics.
Oh, no.
It's from like 94 or something.
I feel like when they licensed Captain America, the company they're licensing from was like, you have to take Galactic Storm 2. They're like, we don't want it. And they're like, you have to do it.
And it's from a weird era of Marvel Comics. So like it's the Avengers, and the Avengers includes like a bunch of characters nobody remembers anymore.
Yeah.
And also all the enemy characters are like Skrulls. It's just like exclusively Skrulls.
Oh boy, the most interesting Marvel characters.
Right.
Skrulls.
Yeah.
They're humans, but they're green and they got big chins. So interesting.
And pointy ears.
And pointy ears.
And they can shapeshift, but not in this game because that would require a lot of RAM.
Right. Castle Wolfenstein and Super Monkey Ball mashed up into Return to Castle Monkey Ball, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's
I watched a video and it looks super fun. Honestly,
it's playable. It's playable in your browser. I played a bit. It's okay. New Mario Red Switch model coming. It is a Switch. It is red. The dock is red. It comes with a red case.
Isn't one of the things blue to denote his overalls or something?
I don't know.
I don't remember. I don't. I
just saw the picture. It came with the case that had the blue zipper, and then I saw the dock and everything.
Yeah, I don't tend to go for the custom color systems. I like to go with vanilla until somebody announces a Dragon Quest something, and then I froth over it for a while, and then still go with vanilla.
I don't generally do red for electronics anyway. Yeah. Personally. Yeah. Bethesda working with Machine Games on an Indiana Jones game with few details given. I think they just released a quick teaser video, and that was kind of it.
Could be interesting.
It could be. We'll see, I guess.
It's just only Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, no. You just stop. Quit it. It could be interesting. Could be all Shia LaBeouf. Interesting is not the word I'd use. Bleem returning as a digital marketplace.
Weird.
Bleem claims to be preserving games that they, quote, would never release on Steam or Good Old Games, which is what GOG called itself a decade ago.
Yeah. Thanks, Bleem. This is what, the third attempt for Bleem to come back?
Well, when they say that, I don't know that they've been on Steam or GOG, because could you imagine something that you couldn't release on Steam or GOG?
Right, yeah, that's the weirdest part at this point.
I mean, because Steam is all hentai games and GOG is all broken shit. Like, what are you going to release?
It's got to just be shitty games that nobody remembers. Like,
I'm thinking it's a combo. I'm thinking it's broken hentai games. They're like, we can't do both on one of these.
Well, the press release that I read about it seemed to imply that they were going to be releasing ROMs and disk images that you could then play on whatever emulator you want.
Well, GOG does that too.
Yeah, they do sometimes.
Sakuna of Rice and Ruin potential sequel hinted at. This is, I don't want to call it a sleeper hit, because I feel like whenever something is a sleeper hit, it doesn't get 50 articles talking about how it's a sleeper hit, but it's a recent release that everyone was very excited about. Yeah. And they're kind of, they said they won't be doing DLC, but they would like to do a sequel. So
that's good.
A lot of people enjoyed it. Hopefully we get that sequel.
Right.
Nintendo hits Game & Watch hackers with copyright claims on their YouTube videos.
Thanks, Nintendo.
The original headline I read said something like, Nintendo shuts down Game & Watch hackers. And I was like, well, they just put a copyright claim on their YouTube videos. So like they haven't C&D'd them, but that's also shitty.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
It's not like nobody would think that was happening if there weren't YouTube
They're just
videos.
going to re-upload it on Pornhub anyway. I mean... and finally, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remaster rumors crop up yet again. This time claiming a February reveal.
We'll see.
I think they're doing Pokemon's whateverth anniversary.
25th, I believe.
25th?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Gosh, I was alive when it came out. Oh no.
Well, it's 23 since the U.S. release, but 25 since the original release.
That's too long.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool if it happened.
Right now, the feelings that you're having are how I felt when people were talking about the 25th anniversary of the NES.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was painful.
Without further ado, let's get into our topic at hand. We're talking Street Fighter.
Yay.
No, not the video game.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we're talking Street Fighter, the movie.
No!
A live-action film adaptation of the 1991 arcade game Street Fighter II, and the movie explicitly says It is an adaptation of Street Fighter 2.
It does claim that.
Starring JeanClaude Van Damme, Raul Julia, and many other people who wish they had something better to do at that time.
And first of all,
but did not.
At best, it is an adaptation of Super Street Fighter 2.
And that's really pushing it.
Yeah.
As far as release info, this had its theatrical debut on December 23rd, 1994 in the U.S.
Just in time for Christmas.
May 6th, 1995 in Japan.
Some kid's Christmas present was to go see Street Fighter.
Was there not a European release? They didn't. European theaters were like, no.
I think it was simultaneously with the U.S. release.
Okay. It was distributed by Universal Pictures in the U.S. and Columbia TriStar Pictures internationally. Mm-hmm. And we do have some listener feedback about it. First up is Elk Neodafs, who writes in, about a year ago, I was consuming everything Street Fighter. I got it in my head that I should watch the Street Fighter movie with my girlfriend. I had to inception her, make her think it was her idea to watch it. Ultimately, we did watch the movie, and it turns out the inceptioning wasn't necessary. Though miscast, Raul Julia made the movie fun. I would definitely agree with that last bit. Tamchan87 says, I don't have much to say about this train wreck, especially on how this was my first experience in feeling massive disappointment in something I was very hyped about. Maybe it was his Christmas present. Great, so bad, it's good B-movie, but JeanClaude Van Damme does not show his beautiful, smooth booty. 5 out of 7. Rhaegar Starkong says, picture it, it's 1995. My entertainment for the evening ended up being the Street Fighter movie, as well as the hacker punk classic Hackers. Well, I watched Hackers first, and we all know how that classic, what a classic that has become. And then when I popped in Street Fighter, I laughed my way through from start to finish. Man, what a terrible and amazing flick. It's definitely one of those.
It's one of those. We forgot to put in our first encounters here.
We did forget our first encounters. So I mean, this came out in 94, so I was 6. And so this was just that one of those things that had just existed when I was a kid. Right along with the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I think was it a year after this?
I think it was a couple of years after the Super Mario movie.
Years after. They were just two like video game movies that I knew of, but I wasn't caught in the hype of their release. I knew going into them the first time I heard about them, the first thing I heard about them was they're bad.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure I saw it as a TV movie, which is where it has apparently made most of its money over the years. I was caught up in the hype because me and my friends were super huge Street Fighter fans. We were so excited for we just played Street Fighter all day, every day at that point. So when they announced a movie, we were like, oh my God, this is going to be the most amazing thing. And then all the adults are going to realize how exciting this thing we love is. Because that's how it works, right? Let me ask you, did any of you ever stop for a minute and go, wait a minute, how the hell are they going to make a movie out of this?
No,
this
not 1 second.
This is basically like a dozen stereotypes punching each other in the face. Well, how do you make no one...
We just assumed that the smart people in Hollywood could figure that out.
Oh, you assumed that mid-90s Hollywood would figure anything out?
We were kids, okay?
Sadder.
We didn't know better. And fortunately, around the time that the magazine started showing previews of it, like pictures of JeanClaude Van Damme as Guile, me and a couple of my friends like woke up. We like looked at this and we were like, this is going to be bad, isn't it? This is going to be really bad. And so we skipped the theatrical. And then... when it was about to come out on home video, they had announced the pay-per-view first. And I come home from school and my mom says, I rented Street Fighter on pay-per-view for tonight. And I'm like, why would you do that? Everyone says it's terrible. And she says, but I love JeanClaude Van Damme.
Oof.
And
was she also disappointed that he didn't show his smooth booty?
Possibly, but she didn't tell me about that part. She thought it was a great movie. She really enjoyed it. Granted, she also really loves the Doom movie. She has historically terrible taste in movies, but she'll watch anything that has an action star in it.
It's.
I did not enjoy it nearly as much as she did. I spent the whole time like trying to hide my eyes and pretend like I wasn't watching it.
Yeah.
Just because of how Like, and the worst part was sitting next to her being super excited about it the whole time. And she kept asking me things. She was like, what's that character's name? That's Cammy. She looks really cool. It was just so awkward.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Let's cover the movie's plot.
But there's a plot?
Because I watched this movie 3 times in preparation for this show.
Did you lose a bet?
No, well, I don't know. I bought the Blu-ray. And
I'd just like to reiterate, for anybody listening, it's not like I tricked you into doing this like World Court Tennis. This was your idea.
I am on record as liking bad movies and being fascinated by their badness.
All right.
And I tried to watch it with the director commentary, and oh boy. I ended up watching it. I could not. I found a different commentary to watch it with.
So what would you say is better with commentary, this or Zardoz?
I've not finished my Zardoz with commentary.
All right.
That's still on the docket.
Okay,
because
we'll have to come back to that answer then.
It's not appropriate to watch near my child.
Or any other living human being.
Well, yeah, that's true. It offends the human brain, but there's also lots of penises and boobs in it.
That's true.
So the plot of Street Fighter,
yes,
is that Shadaloo, off to a good start. Shadaloo, that's a thing from the game.
Yes, that is true.
Which is a mysterious and never geographically pinpointed, but presumably Southeast Asian nation, has fallen to M. Bison.
Right. I thought his organization was called Shadaloo, so the country itself is Shadaloo?
I'll tell you, I watched it 3 times, so I think I'm an expert on the movie, and I'm not totally sure. So I'm just going to say I don't know.
Cool.
Because the plot really is so much more complicated than it should ever have been. Yeah. It's a full-on Demolition Man level plot where it's like, why are you making it this complicated? We very early on meet Bison's henchmen, DJ and Zangief.
Just like in the game.
And we're going to go over the cast and exactly how they portrayed everyone after, but we just want to get through the plot.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, Colonel William F. Guile fights with the Allied nations, and they fail to stop Bison. And Guile's friend, everyone knows Guile's friend, Charlie, also known as Carlos Charlie Blanca, is captured. And very quickly, an ongoing subplot develops as Charlie is turned into a green monster with a weird Clockwork Orange style forced viewing of violent videos situation and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles level mutagen.
Yes. And who is doing this to him?
Oh, well, Dr. Dalsim, of course.
Of course. And Dr. Dalsim is, of course, a bald Indian man who stretches his limbs,
he's shown with his iconic regular body, lab coat, and thick, full head of hair.
Oh, of course. Yes. That Dalsim. My bad.
Yeah. The prequel Dalsim.
No, so I played Street Fighter Alpha. He always looked like Dalsim.
Already we're in the fucking weeds.
Yes.
They've turned Blanca into Guile's friend Charlie, but this was before...
This is before Alpha came out.
Yeah, so this is before Charlie in the games, who was Guile's friend, happened, right?
But in the ending for Street Fighter 2, Guile mentions that he wants to avenge Charlie.
Right.
So the name had already been established.
Yeah.
But only a name.
So Charlie Blanca is locked in this big, chamber, and they...
I've known some guys named Carlos. I've never known one who went by Charlie.
Yeah, that's also odd. The name is odd from top to bottom. And they're like, all right, we're going to make him watch angry, violent videos for a week, and then that's going to reprogram his whole brain.
Totally, that's how it works.
But then they wheel in these big cartoon IV bags that just say mutagen on them.
What kind of mutagen is it? It's vanilla.
Yeah, I think it says genetic mutagen. It's full on neon green.
Yeah, that's how it comes. Straight from the factory.
We meet Ryu Hoshi, which is his full name.
This is his full name.
And his friend Ken Masters. And they're introduced trying to rip off Victor Sagat and Vega in an arms deal. So we meet them as...
Are Victor Sagat and Vega 3 characters?
No, it's Victor Sagat.
Oh, of course.
And Vega. Sagat's first name is Victor, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And he's a relatively short, older man who's not in great shape.
Yes.
So, just like the video game Sagat.
Hey, the name Ken Masters, which is so far the only full name that is correct in this entire thing.
Yeah.
You know where that name came from, right?
No, I don't.
The G.I. Joe action figure.
Oh, my God.
When the company that puts out G.I. Joe, I think it was Hasbro or Mattel? I don't remember.
Oh gosh, I want to say it's Hasbro owns G.I. Joe now, but I think they've scooped everything up. So.
Yeah, possibly. I think it was still Kenner then, maybe? I don't remember.
Kenner did the original G.I. Joe dolls, but I think the 80s reissue that were action figure sized were different company.
Okay. Well, whoever it was, they didn't want to mix up their new Ken that they had licensed from Street Fighter with Barbie's boyfriend, Ken. Because when you go to a toy store and you just say, "Give me Ken," they're just going to grab the first one they see, right? That's how stores work.
Definitely.
So they needed to give him a last name to differentiate it. And Capcom didn't provide them one, so they're just like, Masters. That's his name now. And then Capcom saw that and they're like, "Oh, that's a good American last name. That's his name now."
Perfect.
Yeah.
So they're trying to rip off Sagat and Vega in an arms deal, but Sagat gets the one up on them and goes and retrieves the weapons and realizes they're ripping them off.
Mm-hmm.
And they take all the weapons out that they're allegedly trying to sell them.
Yeah.
And they're Nerf guns?
Of course, because that's how you do a fake arms deal. Yeah. You sell someone loaded Nerf guns.
Yeah, you construct, paint, and assemble Nerf guns to sell them.
Yes. Because maybe this was a different time. Maybe this was just before Nerf guns cost as much as real guns.
Right, obviously. Eventually, Guile shows up and arrests everyone by driving 2 enormous missiles into the building attached to a truck. And he pops out of the top and says, "You're all under arrest." And everyone puts their hands up as if he's going to point blank fire a 40-foot missile into a crowd of civilians
that he's standing in.
Like, they all could have ran.
Right.
They did not.
No.
So he eventually arrests everyone involved and recruits Ken and Ryu in a plot to incite a fake/real prison break with Sagat and Vega and to fake shoot him being Guile, to death.
Yes.
And of course they do. So it's fake in that Ryu and Ken are in on things and they're trying to infiltrate Shadaloo, but it's a real prison break in that they break themselves, Sagat and Vega, out of prison.
And everyone else.
And a bunch of actual prisoners.
Right.
And then they fake shoot Guile in the street.
Yes.
In the process,
which is the closest to a street fight as we see in the movie.
Yeah. As noted out by the riff tracks and just watching the movie, that is the only actual fight in a street in the whole thing. And on the riff tracks, they pointed out every fight they pointed out. In the process, we're introduced to Chun-Li. E Honda and Balrog, who are undercover TV journalists / a revenge group of trained fighters.
Sure.
In a news truck
in Southeast Asia.
Chun-Li breaks into the morgue where Guile is,
and E Honda is a Japanese man named Edmund, right?
No, he's Hawaiian.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
He's an AV tech.
Yes, a Hawaiian AV tech. There you go. And so it's Chun-Li breaks into the morgue where Guile's body is and finds his body on a slab under a sheet.
Yeah, where it's been sitting for hours.
At which point, JeanClaude Van Damme Guile pops up and is like, "Haha, I'm not dead."
Only his English is worse.
But presumably, he was just laying in the morgue pretending to be dead until someone found him days later. Like, why?
Was it days?
Why was he in there?
Yeah.
Even if it was later that day, what was he doing laying on the slab?
Right.
everyone at the Allied Nations are in on it.
Yeah.
Eventually, Ryu, Ken, Sagat, and Vega all team up with Bison, with Ryu and Ken obviously planning to double-cross him.
Right.
And they get their signature white and red gis, which are Shadaloo uniforms.
Yeah, apparently, that's where Ryu and Ken had learned their martial arts is from Shadaloo.
Eventually, Guile attacks Bison's base with Cammy and T-Hawk, who are also Allied Nation soldiers, and all hell breaks loose. At this point, each character hasn't been seen in their signature outfit from Street Fighter 2, and they kind of eventually find it or devolve into it. So E Honda eventually just gets his clothes slowly ripped off until he's shirtless.
Yeah, and he's still not in any kind of sumo outfit.
No.
He's still just wearing pants.
He is a sumo. I don't know if I mentioned that. He does practice sumo.
So one of those Hawaiian sumos, yeah.
And then Balrog in the movie is wearing a full boxer's uniform under his regular clothes.
A shiny boxer's uniform.
As he gets in fights, his clothes are slowly ripped away to reveal, he's a boxer.
And then find gloves somewhere.
Sagat is eventually stripped down to just his khakis, so he's an old man in khakis.
Yeah. And he has a scarf for some reason. No explanation in the movie.
Zangief eventually is down into his red briefs and has his very long, wispy, weird signature chest hair that I don't know who thought that looked okay, but it's
it looks so hilarious.
It's like 4 feet long and sticking straight out from his chest, and they keep showing these side shots, and it looks like someone just ripped all the hair out of a used hairbrush and just pasted it to his chest. So they all eventually get their outfits.
Right.
Except for T-Hawk, who just gets a headband. And then Guile karate kicks Bison to death twice next to his Capcom arcade machine hovering command platform and saves the day.
DJ never got his uniform.
Oh, DJ does not get his uniform. No, he does not. Interesting.
And Fei Long never even gets screen time.
No, Fei Long's not there at all.
He was replaced with Sawada.
As far as thoughts on the film, the plot of the film as a whole, it really is just a train wreck. It would have been easy enough to do a globe-trotting fighting tournament with each character individually representing their country.
Right.
And the movie instead seems to kind of randomly lump characters either with Shadaloo or the Allied Nations. So no character feels distinct. Because, I mean, the whole thing of Street Fighter is they're distinctly representing their countries.
Right.
That's the whole conceit of Street Fighter.
That's why they are stereotypes of their countries.
That's what the World Tournament is.
Yeah.
And I understand that they don't want people to just be walking stereotypes in a movie. You can have more nuance than that, but...
we forgot to mention that Dalsim eventually loses his hair. So
in the final scene, Dalsim's just a regular scientist, and like near the end, a bunch of mutagen spills on him, and you're like, oh, this is it. This is when he gets his powers. And he just stands up, and he's like, I'm fine. And you're like... Get stretchy, dude. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like running out of the Shadaloo base, and Dalsim runs up and he's like, you have to go out that door. And he's just bald for no reason. Nobody says anything.
He's lost his shirt.
His shirt's been ripped off his body. He's covered in soot. He looks like he got exploded.
That's how he lost his hair, was in the explosion.
Also, we didn't mention they succeed. Blanca becomes Blanca the Green Monster.
Yeah.
But instead of casting a really big, beefy, ripped guy to be Blanca, it's just a regular-sized man painted green. And Guile, JeanClaude Van Damme Guile, confronts him and is like, oh no, it's Charlie, my friend Charlie. And Blanca looks at him and there's recognition in his face because Dalsim like sabotaged the end of his training. So he's at the 49% mark of his evil training.
Yeah.
He started training him to be good. So
instead of videos of like explosions and murders, he's shown like
videos
Dr.
of weddings.
King and weddings and shit.
Yeah. And so Blanca's 51% good. We know that mathematically. The movie shows it to us.
Right.
And Guile is like, oh, and Blanca sees him and is like, I don't know what they did to me. Well, he's monster voice, so he's like,
right.
And Guile's like, it's okay, Charlie, I'll get him back for you, and then goes to shoot him in the fucking face. Just is gonna blow his brains out.
Just put him out of his misery.
And then Dalsim's like, you don't have the right, and then they cut.
And then he's fine. They're all fine after that.
it sucks all the individuality out of each character along with their backstory.
Yeah.
The action is that like 90s bombastic Waterworld level of bullshit.
That's a perfect description of it, actually.
Like all the props are hokey, and they just detract from the film.
Yeah.
And it's not until the final portion of the movie that the characters even seem to be different from one another.
Right.
And it really, really, really feels like they're trying to set up a sequel where, like, at the end of this movie, now they're all in their costumes and they're together and they look like the Street Fighter gang.
Right.
And then in the next movie, they'll be that. And they don't get there.
Yeah. Well, no. I do think they were trying to set up a franchise, like a whole series of movies. And nobody along the way told them how bad it was.
Right.
I don't know how they managed to get that far into production without anyone on cast being like, is this really bad?
Let's talk cast, because I really desperately want to talk about JeanClaude Van Damme as Guile.
Yeah.
The muscles from Brussels himself.
Yes.
For people that don't know, he's an action film star known for his Saturn wrote Oscar-worthy acting and very American accent.
That's true. He is the best casting for Guile because he is the most cookie cutter American accent person out there, right?
JeanClaude Van Damme as Guile. I don't know what he's saying, and they keep giving him these one-liners.
Yes,
and he can't deliver them.
No,
because he has no inflection. He just blurts out his line and then walks off scene and high kicks someone, and. What I find really frustrating about it is it seems like the only point in casting JeanClaude Van Damme as Guile was martial artist.
Yes.
And he is a real martial artist in the real world.
Absolutely.
A very well-known one.
Yes.
And almost all of his action scenes are cut so that you never really actually see him doing martial arts.
Yes.
It's most evident in his final battle with M. Bison,
right?
Whenever they never show any hits landing in the whole fight,
right? But part of that may have been because of M. Bison, not because of Julia, or not because of JeanClaude Van Damme,
right? It's just the whole thing is like you're waiting for this final battle between Guile and Guile. You know, obviously the hero of Street Fighter.
Yeah,
the main character of Street Fighter.
Yes.
To fight M. Bison, and the whole scene is just basically JeanClaude Van Damme flipping around doing kicks and then them cutting to Bison.
Yes.
And he is honestly, I think he's the worst actor in the film, and that's saying a lot because we're going to talk about Sawada later. I think he really is. He is so bad.
That's a hard choice between those two, though.
And they give him so many more lines than he needs.
Yeah, and every line he delivers, he seems to desperately want to stare at the camera and give that "you find me sexy, don't you?" look.
Right. Then we have Raul Julia as M. Bison, who he was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
He is the only convincing performance in the movie.
Yes.
He's the only good performance in the movie. Yeah. He does great.
Oh yeah, he overacts everyone else in the film.
Right.
I think he's the only one there who is taking it seriously at all.
You get the famous lines where, like, the day Bison came into your life was the most important part of your day. For me, it was just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
He delivers everything with so much gusto.
Yeah.
For people that don't know, he was Gomez Addams in the 1991 adaptation of The Addams Family.
Right.
In 1994, he revealed he'd been battling stomach cancer for at least 3 years, and he said he was committed to finishing his work on Street Fighter as he felt it would give him more reason to spend time with his children, who were fans of the game.
That's such a tragic way to go out as Street Fighter movie.
He died on October 24th, 1994 at age 54 and was posthumously nominated for a Saturn Award for his portrayal of M. Bison, which was seen as one of the few redeeming parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And he really does. He sells that evil bastard routine so well.
Yeah, and he had been acting for decades at that point. But for some reason, he never really hit the public eye until he played Gomez. And that was just a few years before this, which is really tragic that his time in the limelight is Gomez and Bison. because he's really just a beautiful actor. His performance is excellent.
Right.
Unfortunately, it was surrounded by the rest of this movie.
We have Ming Nan as Chun-Li, who did a lot of TV work, had her big break in the Joy Luck Club, and appeared in both the Street Fighter movie and Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yep, she was the main character there.
She was fortunately also Fa Mulan in Disney's animated Mulan and its sequel, as well as acting in television series like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and The Mandalorian. So she's gone on to have a good career.
Yes, fortunately, she has recovered from both Street Fighter and Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
I can only imagine someone that did both Street Fighter and Final Fantasy probably liked video games and was excited about the projects. You don't pick those.
She was a fan of both of those games.
And I cannot imagine her disappointment of being like, all right, Street Fighter, and then it sucks. And she's like, oh, yeah, that was bad. Well, hey, Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy. And then it's like, oh, my God.
Someday we may have to do an episode on The Spirits Within, because
we may.
That movie had a phenomenal cast for how terrible
on Blu-ray, I'll buy that one, too.
I've got the Blu-ray for some reason.
Kylie Minogue as Cammy.
Yeah.
Who is an Australian singer-songwriter.
Not an actress.
Not an actress.
She has done some acting since, but she's not best known for her incredible acting prowess.
Oh, and we didn't mention Ming Nan does an okay job as Chun-Li. She probably is the second best performance.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the second most enjoyable performance, but probably the second objectively best acting performance in the movie.
That's fair. You sure it's not the AN guy who drops his briefcase in the water or whatever?
Well, the second most enjoyable role in the movie is Zangief, because he's so dumb.
Yeah, he is just the top selling that part.
They play Zangief as full on dumb, and it's great. I think there's one scene where they see Ken and Ryu push a truck full of explosives toward the building they're in, and they're looking at it on a security monitor, and there's this moment where it dawns on everybody, oh, that's coming right for us, this thing we see on the security monitor for the camera outside this building.
Yeah.
And as it's about to hit the building and blow them up, Zangief goes, quick, change the channel. And it gets a laugh from me every time.
He plays full on Looney Tunes dumb giant character, and it's excellent.
Yeah. And then we have Kenya Sawada as Sawada, well-known Street Fighter character Sawada.
Yes, Sawada, the best Street Fighter character.
Who is a Japanese actor who appeared by request of Capcom.
Yep.
Capcom wanted this.
Yes.
They wanted all of this.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah, they had intended for Sawada to be the Capcom film mascot character. They had also he helped write the script for the Street Fighter 2 animated movie, and as well as the anime series Street Fighter 2V. And he
that
also
makes sense.
He has
Street
also
Fighter 2.5.
Yeah. He has also, I believe, done voice work for both of them, at least in the Japanese version. His English isn't great. I read conflicting reports as to whether or not he actually even spoke English at the time of the recording of the movie. One source said that he was just given phonetic pronunciations for everything in katakana. Yeah. And another source said he spoke English, but not in decades since he was in school.
Well, they have one scene, his longest consecutive line in the movie
is 3 sentences.
It's delivered in Japanese, and it's them watching E Honda and Zangief fight on a security monitor, and they happen to be fighting in the room where Bison has his big scale replica of Bisonopolis, which is the town he's going to build.
Yeah, we forgot about that.
And on the security monitor, it is adding Godzilla fight sound effects. And that's the joke.
Officially licensed Toho Godzilla sound effects.
Oh, yeah. They're for real bad. Godzilla sound effects. It's not like knockoff monster noises. It is the Godzilla roar.
Yes.
And the joke is, look, Japanese people watching
giant people destroying a city.
Yeah, and it's a bad joke, and it doesn't make sense at all. But he does get to deliver some lines in that scene. They are in Japanese, but that's the most lines he gets.
Yeah, there's a couple other times where he does deliver lines in English, and it's
but they're
very
short.
obvious that he is struggling on it. And I almost feel bad for him that they forced him to be in the movie.
I don't know why no one told him to stop pronouncing it colonel. He kept saying colonel guile.
Colonel guile, yes.
And certainly colonel is a very strangely spelled word.
True. You're not wrong.
But any other English speaker on the set should have been like, oh, hey, no, that's one of those weird words. You got to say it different.
Maybe he didn't understand them when they were saying that.
I assume someone on the set was translating for the poor man.
That's true. There were Japanese people on set because there was people from Capcom there and the other person who was in that one scene where he gets to speak Japanese.
Yeah, and like 4 different times in the movie, he says colonel guile.
Yes, that is true. I feel so bad for him.
You'll notice we don't mention the actors for DJ, Dalsim, Charlie, Ryu, Ken, because
they're kind
this
of
is their career.
Yeah.
This is really most of it.
Like I looked up all of those people to see what else they had done. And
yes, most of them did an episode or 2 of Law and Order, and then that was kind of it.
CSI, JAG.
Oh man,
stuff like that. And they've done some other things too. I'm not going to completely dismiss every one of these actors, but none of them had noteworthy careers of any reputation.
Right. Siren, tell me about the reception of Street Fighter the movie.
So the theatrical grossed $99.4 million on a budget of $35 million.
So it made its money.
It did make its money back.
More than double.
Yeah, it opened at number 3 in the box office behind Dumb and Dumber and the Santa Claus. Yep.
I don't know if I've ever said it, but Dumb and Dumber is my all-time favorite movie of all time.
I did love that movie. I did see Dumb and Dumber in the theater. I did not see Street Fighter in the theater.
What's her last name? I don't know. Check the briefcase. Samsonite. I was way off.
Yeah, there's so many scenes. Anyway,
pull over. No, it's a cardigan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Capcom has noted that home video and television broadcasts of the film have been profitable with a return of over 15.5 billion yen. With one representative from Capcom telling in an interview that every time the film is aired on cable, Capcom makes $1 million.
Oh my goodness.
And they have made a ton of money off of broadcasting Street Fighter the movie. Here's some reviews. The New York Times: a dreary, overstuffed hodgepodge of poorly edited martial arts sequences and often unintelligible dialogue. The Washington Post: notable only for being the last film by Raul Julia, an actor far too skilled for the demands of the evil warlord General M. Bison, but far too professional to give anything less than his best.
Yeah.
Variety: suffers from the same problems that impaired Super Mario Brothers. It's noisy, overblown, and effects-laden, and lacks sustained action or engaging characters. Sight and Sound, regarding Kylie Minogue's performance as Cammy, said, hilarious miscasting as a military wench with Heidi plates. The merest glimpse of her holding a bazooka and looking mean is enough to induce giggles in the most dour of viewer.
She is pretty useless in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing there. Maybe she was a fan of the games and she requested it. I don't know.
It's legit hard to be more bland than JeanClaude Van Damme. And she's like Sawada level bland, where you're just like, oh yeah, she was in that.
Yeah, also, Cammy was there.
And T-Hawk was there, and his only notable plot point I can think of was he had a series of forehead Band-Aids throughout the movie that kept getting smaller as the movie progressed, presumably because he was healing.
Yeah, I saw an interview with some people that worked on the film that said that the dude that played T-Hawk was really drunk and high all of the time. and he showed up for one session of mocap for the game, completely phoned it in, didn't do anything right. Like they couldn't use any of the footage. He said he would come back, and then he fled the country.
I too would flee the country to get away from this movie. I say after telling everyone I bought it on Blu-ray. I don't know. Tell me about the legacy that this movie has left behind us.
DC Comics published a one-shot comic adaptation called Street Fighter: The Battle for Shadaloo, and a manga adaptation was published in Korokoro Comics Special.
Oh, boy.
And, of course, there was the attempted reboot, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, which released in theaters in 2009. It received even worse reviews than this movie. I did get a quote from Leonard Maltin about The Legend of Chun-Li. Quote, "The 1994 picture was one of the worst movies ever inspired by a video game. Even JeanClaude Van Damme fans couldn't rationalize this turkey, which should have been titled 400 Funerals and No Sex." Yet, this pointless and inept action vehicle makes its predecessor seem like Citizen Kane. Hopelessly contrived and lamely choreographed fight sequences highlight is Chris Klein's cry of, "Bomb! Get out now!" Our sentiments exactly.
Oh, man. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was like live action Dragon Ball bad. Holy cow.
I did like him referring to the original movie as 400 Funerals and No Sex. That's a great title.
I just like that he called it a turkey. Couldn't rationalize this turkey.
It's a jive turkey.
We don't have much time for them, unfortunately, because we spent too much time laughing at this train wreck. But do you want to fire through Street Fighter the movie, the game?
We have to.
Street Fighter the movie, the game, the other one?
Yes. So first one, just real quick, developed by Incredible Technologies, a little independent studio, and published by Capcom in June of 95 in the arcades. Incredible Technologies apparently were so excited to work on this, and then we're told they had like 4 months to do all the mocap and programming.
Right.
And it was a disaster. So returning characters from the Street Fighter games, you have Akuma, who did not appear in the movie.
No, he did not.
So they just kind of made him out of some footage of another actor. You have Balrog, Cammy, Chun-Li, E-Honda, Guile, Ken, M. Bison, Ryu, Sagat, Vega, and Zangief. New characters original to this game, you have Blade, who is generic uniformed Shadaloo soldier.
Not the Blade.
No, not Blade from Marvel Comics. Not that one.
Okay.
You have Sawada.
Wonderful.
Played by Kenya Sawada. You have Arcane, Kyber, and F7, which are all color swaps of Blade.
There's that time budget they were bumping up against.
So several of the actors from the film did work with the game developers on mocap and voice recordings. Raul Julia had already signed on to do so and was excited to do so, but unfortunately passed before he could. So he was replaced with a stunt double. It is the first ever Street Fighter game where Akuma is readily selectable instead of being hidden or unlockable. Mm-hmm. And the Japanese release of the game used the Western names for Bison, Vega, Balrog, and Akuma, which is weird.
Right. Well, it's for the movie, so
right,
that makes sense.
It is. It is a very bad game, poorly programmed, rushed. I don't recommend playing it. It's got all kinds of issues.
It came out, I feel like, on everything.
No, it was just arcade.
Was it? Oh, am I thinking of the other one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm thinking of the other one. We'll get to it.
Yeah, and Next Gen reviewed the arcade game 2 out of 5, said it added nothing to the Street Fighter franchise. A magazine called Game Machine in Japan reported that it was the 13th most successful arcade game of 1995, which says something about 1995 in arcades.
That's back when arcade games could live on hype.
Yeah. Then we have Street Fighter the movie, the game. Which is the same name as that last game, but this is a different game.
As you may have noticed.
Yeah, so this is developed by Capcom and published by Capcom in Japan and Acclaim internationally. And it was on PlayStation and Saturn. But my favorite part is the Japanese title of the game is Street Fighter Real Battle on Film.
Wonderful.
That's the best
It's
name.
Better than Street Fighter the movie, the game. I mean,
that's true.
How many colons can we fit in this title?
So the characters in this are the exact same as the arcade port, but you also have DJ and Blanca using mocap from the actors from the movie.
I'm sorry, you have the actor that played Charlieblanca doing motion cap?
That's correct.
Oh,
and it looks hilarious when he does his forward roll move. It's so good. All the mocap was just reused from the arcade game. Yeah, but dropped in resolution and in frame rate.
Joy.
Akuma is now hidden. Blade has been removed along with his color swaps, but thank God Sawada is still here.
Oh, thank goodness. I was concerned.
The game engine is based on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So it is actual Capcom Street Fighter game engine. Like in Darkstalkers games or in Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, the characters can all use stronger versions of their special moves at the cost of some of their super gauge, which is a different new mechanic from regular Street Fighter. There is a story mode called Movie Battle that very loosely follows the plot of the film, just like we did when we were watching it.
Yep.
Kuma is referred to as Goki in the Japanese release, like he is in the games, but Vega, Balrog, and Bison kept their Western names.
I'm sure that wasn't confusing at all to the Japanese market.
The game is mostly received very poorly for poor animation, slow, glitchy gameplay, and just terrible voice acting. The funniest part is, in the arcade version, Intelligent, what's the name of that company? I just said a minute ago, Incredible Technologies. Yep. They had asked all of the actors from the film to say all of the names of the moves.
Oh, no.
And they even had an arcade machine in the room so that they could listen to what it sounded like when the characters said it.
Oh, no.
And it sounds hilarious in the arcade version, especially Ryu and Ken. It's just so bad. For the home port, Capcom took those voice clips and adjusted them through computer sound editing to make it sound closer to the arcade version.
That sounds like it might actually be worse.
It is worse. It's so bad. So I don't recommend playing any of them. Is the takeaway here? Maybe look at some videos of them because it's hilariously bad.
I think they're still pretty cheap. What if you could get it for less than $5?
I wouldn't pay money for them, no. like if you could play it for free on an emulator, okay,
maybe
check it out.
All right,
but don't spend any real time on it. Expect it to be bad, is what I will say.
As far as final thoughts, this movie sucks. Everything related to this movie sucks.
Yeah.
The new character they shoved into the movie in the game sucks.
Yeah.
The writing sucks.
Yeah.
The acting mostly sucks. The action sucks.
Yeah.
The director commentary sucks.
The director also wrote the movie.
The riff tracks was all right. Yeah, that said,
yeah,
it does have some amount of that weird charm, largely emanating from Raul Julia, but you get in little bits and pieces in other places.
Yeah.
At its worst, it's bad in all the dumbest ways.
Yes.
So if you do like that kind of Waterworld failed 90s blockbuster type film, you might find some fun there. I will say that. But it is basically the dumbest possible way to do a Street Fighter film.
Oh, it's so bad. But if you want to see a good Street Fighter film, there is the Street Fighter 2 animated movie.
Yes, and I hear there was an anime series, was there not?
Yeah, Street Fighter 2V.
I think there's been a couple. Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. There's been a couple of Street Fighter related series.
There was also the Western animated Street Fighter cartoon. You don't need to watch that.
Okay, great. So yeah, I wish we could come in here with some new insight and tell people things they didn't know about it, but the truth is it's just real bad. And leading the bad brigade is JeanClaude Van Damme, poorly delivering every punch and line in this movie.
He delivers some terrible puns that are made even worse because of his delivery.
He had been in like a dozen movies by this point.
Oh yeah.
How does he not have a fucking acting coach? I mean,
So from what I read, all the filming of this movie was done in Australia to save money, and they had just the cheapest set. They were told to do it in the shortest amount of time and everything. So I imagine that none of the acting coaches or choreographers or anybody made it to Australia. That's my theory.
Yeah,
they were on another continent.
But yeah, it's not good.
No.
Again, if you specifically like failed 90s blockbuster, I'll say this. If you get some kind of sick enjoyment out of the Super Mario Brothers movie, you might get sick enjoyment out of this too.
Or if you have a lot of friends that you really want to torture with a bad movie night, you could do that.
Yeah, because it's dumb.
Yeah,
but what's not dumb is our Patreon.
Justin Segway King Baker back in business.
If you go to patreon.com/Retro Warriors, you can support the show and get cool things like Talking Wizards or our spinoff show, After Hours. And you can also get early uncut access to the episodes where Saturn talks about stealing cable, which is admitting a crime, I might add.
No, I said we borrowed it. I distinctly said it was totally legally borrowed.
It's borrowed cable. Okay. Yes. Well, you'll just go to borrowed jail. That'll be fine. I don't know what the statute of limitation on stealing cable is, but I assume it's long over for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's 40 years.
And this particular episode was brought to you by the following patrons. A winner is me.
Atari 2600 consultant Marlo 221.
Cajun Boz.
Craig C.
Frankie has went to Hollywood and hopefully didn't work on the Street Fighter movie.
Harry Pry.
Justin made me buy 2 CRTs.
Michael Hawes.
Pogs are back.
And Sean Schaller.
Are all the people we want to thank for being patrons and helping us pay our hosting fees and
thank you those people for the Street Fighter episode.
Thank you specifically you people, those people we listed for bringing the Street Fighter the movie episode.
I know it's what you always wanted.
If you do not want to support the show on Patreon, you can also support us by just rating and reviewing the show or telling a friend about it, or just coming and hanging out in our Discord and doing that kind of thing. We would love to have you.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's all for this week. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. And as always, let us cling together.